AWS hired Ashish to build his one idea into one of the fastest, quickest launches in AWS. 0 to 1 launch, 1,000 customers, first 24 hours. Today, I'm talking with Ashish Jha, Director of Engineering at Drata, the engineer behind AWS Audit Manager. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to the show, Ashish.
Good to be here.
It's quite unusual that AWS hires one engineer to build a specific idea. What was that they perceived challenging or not challenging about that service, and why did they hire you, specifically you?
It all started at a dinner meeting. It was not meant to be a job interview or anything. We were just there talking about exchanging ideas. And one of the problem statement which was discussed was audits are very manual in nature.
Mhm.
Lots of spreadsheets, everything, all hands on deck whenever audits time come. It's not centralized. Those all things stuck, resonated well because I had been building couple of software SaaS products at that point and had gone through exactly similar kind of experience. When it comes to launching the service, you're suddenly given like tons of requests to fulfill to get regulatory audits done. So that is when I realized that this area does need a lot of automation, and that quickly resonated, and I was instantly interested in the idea.
Yeah, so it was something that no one likes is constraints, right? And you had probably the best or the worst constraints ever, right? So you have 3 engineers, 4 months, prove it works or kill it. How did you manage that?
One of the reasons AWS is so successful is that it operates on a fail fast model. It does not usually kill its services once they are live, but it also puts a very hard restrictions on before it goes live. And that's the reason like it expects some yardstick to be met at each stage, validations to be done at each stage before you go and build the next stage. So essentially all along the process, we talked to multiple customers at each point of our journey. Every time we faced some new constraints, we made new decisions, we would go talk to a set of customers to revalidate. And that's how we were able to get to a very, very, very early prototype of things which resonated with
So
a set
this
of
was
customers.
essentially a POC.
It started with a POC. So get the POC, take it in front of the customers, see will they pay for it? What part of it will they pay for it? What part is a good to have, but not necessarily something which they will immediately pay for.
Almost like a startup in itself.
It's all these AWS services are built on that fashion that they are startup in their own world.
So CEO of the product, in other words.
You can say so, yeah.
One thing I've faced is prioritizations, right? So especially when you look at your roadmap, you have a lot of things and almost everything is useful. I call it ruthless prioritization. You have to figure out what sticks and what you should throw out. How did you manage to do that? Customer interviews, how did you get there?
So you're absolutely right. I mean, you have less resources, a lot of things to do, and you cannot do all of them in the timeline you are expected to achieve those. So the only way I've seen it done successfully, and that's what we followed, is to continue going back to the customer, continue revalidating what resonates, what does not.
Do you ask for the features or do you ask for the outcomes?
We asked for the problem
Statement.
statements.
Perfect.
So we asked, where are you struggling? How do you do it today? And then we try to dive in that, okay, if this is what you were given, would it feel helpful? Which part of it will something which you will absolutely take, which part doesn't seem like such a big pain? To give an example, when we started this product, we had two areas where we wanted to focus on. We knew that audit space was manual in nature, so we wanted to do a lot of automation around it. We also realized that centralization of resourcing, delegation of workflows was equally important, and we were taking those two as equally important features.
Mhm.
But in our early calls, we realized that the automation is what was resonating a lot more than the workflows.
I see.
And it helped us shape the product in a manner that start with automation, a very limited set of workflows, limited set of delegation capabilities, add to that as the product matures, goes into a lot bigger customers. So it helps us prioritize both the market segment we wanted to go after, as well as the areas we wanted to focus in the V1 of the product.
When it comes to a service that a company like or a platform like AWS ships, scale is probably one of the largest or biggest challenges, right? How did that impact you? What was the expectation? What was the ground reality?
You're absolutely right. AWS, everything is about scale at AWS. We always knew that, and we thought about in the initial architecture, we thought about, okay, let's plan for maybe millions of events hitting us in a day and started architecting with that. We didn't have access to the prod environment early on. And at the point, we took some guesses based on the data we had.
What you saw?
Once we got the access to the prod environment, we realized that these are not millions, these are billions. Billions in a single AWS region, not across. Now, suddenly the architecture we had where we wanted to get all the events to SQS, process it, do the next stage, etc. The cost became almost like 6 to 10x of what we were originally planning. Like something like 200K per month kind of cost just for the SQS.
Without a customer?
Without a customer. And
wow.
The projections. And we knew that it's not going to work.
Okay.
The project
Clearly
will not even get funded beyond the POCs if we've continued on that route. And that forced us to rethink the whole strategy, build the guardrails at a lot earlier stage than we had planned for in the original architecture. So yeah, the scale does play a big factor in the architecture.
What kind of architecture, if we could double click a little bit there, right? Was it?
Let's say we're talking about this is the audit product. So we wanted to take the CloudTrail events across the customer segment and use each event to analyze if that's audit worthy or not. And then whichever events were audit worthy, we will store them and process them and do further.
What language was it?
AWS is all Java in terms of, and then CloudTrail events were being sent to their SNS.
SNS, okay.
And then our plan was to move them all to SQS for processing them further through Lambda, and then get to our database for those which are audit worthy. But then we realized that we cannot simply pass everything from SNS to SQS. We had to put a step in between, do the filtering, do the parsing, have the Lambda engine in the middle of that. And so essentially whatever we were thinking post SQS, we had to move pre-SQS, the parts of it, and do the fast discard process a lot earlier on than we had originally planned.
And Lambda being like stateless, that probably is the right architecture for you in this case.
Because each event was independent, we didn't have to store any pre or post states on there.
Perfect.
So that was that.
There is no startup, there is no warm-up problems.
Exactly.
Okay, so no concurrency, no provision concurrency ever.
Not for this use case, yes.
GDPR and auditability, right? So those are not friends. So how did you manage to really marry both?
Both GDPR and that point, that was the time when CCPA in California was also being done. And there are a lot of additional constraints and requirements which come into picture. You cannot freely put a lot of things in the logs or wherever you want. The access have to be restricted. PII in some manner was always restricted, but GDPR put a lot more than that. Users had the right to be forgotten. You had to make sure that everything related, if a user requests, you have to go and clean up everything.
Okay.
So you architect around that. At the same time, audit is all about full visibility.
Yep.
You need everything around who did what. It needed like a layered architecture where the authenticated user of the system should be able to see everything, whereas the logs needs to have masked data. We cannot have every single thing in the log the way an auditor is seeing. And we needed to build a system in between which will do the masking and unmasking depending on the authorization of the application versus somebody going directly to look at the logs to stay. And then we also had to build with a fashion where every single individual user has the right to be forgotten, and we had to be able to clean that record.
Trace back and clean everything.
Within X number of days. 30 days is the usual expectation, but you do it as fast as you can.
So if a user wants to be forgotten, like he wants to take it off, he'll submit a request and you guys will go through all the trail and remove all the PII
everything.
ID there.
Correct. So that user should not be recognizable in that system anymore.
And when you go back, you're going back to the log files and deleting it?
Everywhere.
Including the database?
Yes.
Even you guys cannot find them anymore?
Yes.
success as a failure mode, right? So early success, especially for a startup, is awesome to be celebrated. But for launches, it's not the best. And I've heard that your first day was not really the first customer signing up. It was 1,000 customers signing up. And that's why it was extremely successful. How did you manage it?
One of the things we realized, we had kind of planned for it, but then didn't expect the number to be that high. AWS has a concept of free tiers, and which means that a lot of customers would want to try things because it doesn't cost them initially. We still did not expect the number to be this high. They all bring good problems. But this also means that some things which we expected to gradually learn, we pretty much had to learn in a very quick
Learn on the fly.
learn on the fly. See, you do use cases, you build around them, you create test cases, and then the customer comes and completely tries it in a different manner. You had not anticipated there. Somebody comes with like a million assets, decides to tweak something around them, which creates like hundreds and thousands of events around those assets. The use cases which you have planned for, probably you expect that to stagger over few days, few weeks, few months. So it suddenly starts to concentrate on certain areas which you had not anticipated. So you have to react, go build it on the fly almost to allow things to continue moving in a fashion where customer expects a timely response. So those were fun challenges to be had. It helped us fine tune things in matter of days, which we otherwise would have taken months. But yeah, I think planning for the free tier is something which that lesson taught me, that if you give something free to customers, they will probably try it out.
Now, was it engineers really fronting the whole thing, or did you have customer success or others dealing with it?
Yeah, so mostly engineers, AWS is a lot engineer heavy. Engineers build system, engineers operate system, they QA systems. Customer support is there, but largely it's the engineering team.
And engineering team generally is just engineers, or engineers and QA and product, or just engineers only?
Engineers and product. So product is of course there, but everybody is engineer. There's no specific QA.
That's the culture of the company.
That's the culture of the company.
Okay, how do you like it?
It builds a rigor, operational rigor. So you know that whatever goes wrong is going to come on you. So then you build it in a manner where everything is automated. You have triggers, monitoring built in upfront in the system. Those are ingrained in the planning and architecture of everyone. Sometimes when you have a cushion where someone else is there to block you, you can relax a bit. This forces you to build it or be ready to be given a call at 2 a.m. because there's no one else, it comes to you.
And generally, you have a test coverage number or something in mind before the release. How do you make sure that it's ready?
The automation is expected to be near 100%. 100%
Test coverage.
doesn't test coverage. 100% doesn't happen, but you still need to be very, very as close as you can, and any gaps are questioned, and you have to be able to justify that the cost or the need of that is not there. So it's you cannot rely on manual testing as a solution.
So who validates the release? It's engineers saying, you know what, we are good to go.
That's the first stage. There's also a continuous operational meetings all along. So you have the centralized operations teams as well who validate your progress before the release. So AWS has a very good checklist for releases. So operational readiness, pricing readiness, limits readiness, monitoring readiness, everything, there's a prescribed way to go about it. And you have to factor that in any release. And a lot of the times, if you have not factored those in, it delays the overall timeline because there's a fixed time each of those processes take. So it's very important for anybody building a new AWS service to understand that these requirements exist, plan for that upfront, because each of them, once you start the process, it may take few months for you to clear them out fully end to end.
Are there any principles like lessons learned that stuck with you from that experience and you took it from there?
One lesson learned was around the whole pricing thing, which
Pricing as a pricing for customers.
pricing for customers, right? So then the fact that your architecture is so tied in to the pricing discussions. Like if you are in a market where a specific pricing is expected for certain solution,
You have to really make sure that the bottom line aligns with the
Align.
pricing. So Ashish, you were involved in the pricing, the balance sheet.
yes,
The P&L was on you.
it wasn't on me, it was on the product, but it was heavily a collaborative effort because engineering had to give the cost of
COGS is yours.
so everything we had to clearly show the architecture wise, like what is going to cost how much and which software are we using, which will and not just for like immediate thing. We had to give a projection for up to 3 years to become at what point do you become profitable, and if you have 3 to 5 years is the max horizon you get to become profitable as a service. And if that path is not made very clear, then you are sent back to drawing board, get that path, come back.
Let me take you back to the architecture side, right? So one thing that I have seen working well, especially for if a service has to be scalable, if you can make it stateless, that relieves a lot of pressure, right? Because you can now at least horizontally scale things. Was that a fair assumption in this case too, or were you managing a stateful service instead?
So most of the aspects of this was stateless, and that was the reason we chose Lambda and serverless as our primary.
Oh, that was your primary
Yes,
architecture. Okay.
architecture, because we did analyze, and most of the things were about events which results to an assessment which ties to a regulatory control, with so they are sequential in nature but yet independent.
Nice.
And that allowed us to like have, we did have to build some stateful systems which were outside of Lambda and like do things in background, most of the synchronous long running processes, but I would say 80% of the overall solution relied on stateless systems, and we could leverage Lambda and DynamoDB combo to get the system done.
So basically, it was Lambda and Dynamo was the 80%, and there was some stateful database or something similar behind the scenes. Okay, got it. For audit, especially the things that you put in the logs have to be secure. It has to be GDPR compliant. Developers accessing it for debugging, right? Did it create any problems, any challenges anywhere?
Environments are different. So dev environment, let's say pre-production environment, production environment. So there are different kind of authorization layers in the whole AWS ecosystem, which so production always required an approval-based, time-based system. So nobody had permanent access from engineering on that. We had to provide a specific case number for every access, and it was only for a specific time duration during which we were allowed to do that on only that specific customer. We couldn't get a generalized access to go and see anything for a random customer as such.
Now, bringing you back to the prioritization part, right? Do you have a feature that you killed and the eng team and the product team was like, yeah, not super happy about it?
A lot of them actually, like both me and working with collaborating with product, right? Every time we would have customer calls and we'll take notes, we will get a sense that what is likely getting on a chopping board. And the more you do that, more clearer it becomes. So there anything which comes back, like say 7, 8 customers, like that's the rough number we are looking for. Anything which gets validated by 5+ customers is typically something where you can easily take a decision. If it is coming for less than that, you probably wait a little bit more to like gather a little more consensus around it. So as I talked about the whole workflow scenario, so we were thinking about building a full delegation model, so multiple layers of approvals and things like that in terms of who does what. And when we realized that customers were a lot more focused on gathering automated evidence across the AWS services, and this part was less relevant or less urgent for them, we kind of cut down drastically in this area during the original launch process and did just first layer of that, which otherwise we would have probably spent 20-30% more time on that if we stuck to our original planning and roadmap.
If you're building the same exact audit manager today, right? And now it's everything is AI, everything is done by AI, so you don't need engineers, right? So what would be the first thing in that or component in that architecture that would be AI ready for you?
If you look at most of the products, pre-AI world products, right, you focus on the presentation layer a lot more. You focus a lot more on gathering a user intent because you cannot ask the user what you want. So then you present everything in a list. You give them tables, you give them filters, you give them searches so that they can get to what they want.
Yep.
and then they can operate on that.
Correct.
That's
Yes, sir.
standard across user model, right? AI changes that. It lets you converse with the user now. So you start with the intent. Now that presentation layer can be simplified a lot because of that. You don't need to give them the universe of things because they can tell you what they want.
It becomes conversational.
It becomes conversational in nature. So then the whole layer, right? You focus a lot more on a robust API which can be stitched together by agents as opposed to, say, 50-50 around presentation layer and the backend. So the world is moving towards headless SaaS, is what I believe, where the moat is more on the backend and your APIs, which can get plugged into the agentic frameworks as opposed to standalone offering end to end driven from the UI.
Basically, UI would now be a lot more simpler, and a conversational agent would probably take its place.
That's the direction we are headed towards. If we are in the intermediate right now, you will have both simplified UI and the conversational aspects together, and slowly the conversational aspect will start taking over, which the UI will start to get simpler and simpler because the user intent is what is driving the whole execution flow, and you do not necessarily need that experience the manner we have right now.
In this world, you do not want, you absolutely don't want any hallucination, right? So that's how it is, right? So what component would never be AI ready in your mind, or what part?
If you talk about specifically around the regulatory world and the audit world, right? A lot of things are driven by laws and rules. As long as the laws and rules mandate human approval, human eyes, things like that, right? Those parts cannot be delegated to AI. AI can be helping in those. So your audits cannot be done by AI right now. Laws don't regulate that. Someday they may, who knows, but not right now. So those are the parts you will likely not build completely out of AI. You can start the initiation. That's why I was talking about the intent, right? You can still gather the intent through AI for all of these use cases. But the actual execution, some pieces can be done by AI, but not all because regulations don't allow that right now. So things like, is this particular control ready for this particular regulation? AI can probably give you a guidance around that, but a human has to come and confirm and sign it off and move it on, be the answerable entity if an audit happens. So that's why you need to build systems in a manner where AI is helping the human doing it,
Not removing it,
not removing AI, the human from the equation.
So basically, this limit is imposed or force imposed on you by the regulatory boards than really the AI capabilities, if I understood it right.
At this moment, even AI capability is a concern. So not everything, because not everything has the level of accuracy which you need in some of the things. So a 90% accurate solution may be acceptable for many scenarios, whereas the scenarios which cannot operate on that. Let's say you are drafting a policy for some regulatory needs. Using an AI tool to help you draft that as a first draft, right, may be acceptable. If it may make some mistakes, you will go and correct it, and
Got it.
it will still help you save some time. But then that AI confirming the wordings 100%, you wouldn't do that today probably because their 90% is not acceptable. There you have to be sure about every word you are putting at the end. So the approval process will still be manual. So till AI gets a stage where it's like 100% at par with anybody else.
For leaders building systems today, right? And you have built a system that has been working for the past, I'm thinking like 5+ years beautifully. What would be the advice or suggestions that you would give to them, especially from on what can be AI native, what has to be off limit for AI?
So I think everything in this generation now should start with AI first intent. So you have to start with AI in the mindset, not retrofit it. That usually will always lead to a challenge. But at the same time, we talked about the previous example, right? Look at the use cases where you do not need 100% accuracy. So that's the key differentiator. Anything which is like which needs 100% accuracy should probably stay
Off limit.
off limit for now till AI gets to that stage. Focus a lot more on, and that's why the entry points, the basic getting started, those are the areas which must have AI because it simplifies things so much more, gets you to the crux of the problem so much faster. But at the same time, things which are like critical in nature, which have direct, let's say, revenue impact, direct legal impact, direct needs oversight, right? Those are the things which needs
To be off limit.
to be off limit till you are able to get to a system. It's almost similar to how we had the cloud journey, right? Where you started with things which could fail, and then you slowly started moving, and we're still in the hybrid world. The physical on-prem world hasn't gone away. So I think this may pan out similar where 100% AI, you'll probably get a few things, but a lot of things may stay 50%, 60%, 70% AI rest if you call the current or the past generation effort as traditional software. So the hybrid world may stay for quite a while, is my guess.
Ashish, this was truly a masterclass in really what it takes to build a service or ship a service under constraints, cost, scale, constraints. Thank you so much for sharing all your hard earned lessons and thanks for spending time with us.
Thanks for having me.